Because I'm going to, as host, stake the territory. I'm going to plant the flag, and then let's talk. I want to hear from Matan and Jonah, and then yourselves. So, as you see, history, it goes back to the Juggling Information Service. In fact, I bet I can zoom it. How's that? There we go. Yeah. So, reading the essays written by Barry Bacalor and Steve Regatz, I gave you the link there. You go to those essays. In particular, Barry's essay of watching Anthony Gatto practice on a regular basis blew my mind. Because it's 1 hour a day, and that's all it is, but it's every day from 3 years old to when he wrote the essay. Without exception, without missing, under the guise of his coach, his father, who was a circus performer, who knew what to do and how to train him. You read that essay, it's like 2 pages. It's amazing. And I read it when I started juggling in 98, 99, and I read it just last night, and it blew my mind again. You read Steve Regatz, then you know him, he's been with Cirque for a long time, he's the man. He's in Cooperstown, he's a pro. And his essay is about how he blew out his wrists and couldn't juggle rings for 3 years. Carpal tunnel, repetitive stress injuries, because of how he's practicing, how he had to change his practice. That meant a lot to me, having just turned 49 years old. So, like I said, when I read those when I was 28, they meant one thing to me. When I read them last night, they meant something else to me, and I gleaned different ideas from them and wisdom. And then several years ago, at least 8 years ago, I read Talent is Overrated by Jeff Colvin, in which he outlines the research done by Anders Ericsson. That research is key to studying elites and elite performance, people in various disciplines who are the best at what they do. Chris Rock, he actually references Anthony Gatto.
Yeah.
He references a guy who memorized the most digits and could repeat them. It was something like 81 digits. Non-contiguous, just random digits. A string of 81 digits, you can remember that anything can be improved depending on your practice and how you practice. Because most of us, when we say, I practice, we're not practicing. We're not getting better. When I go to the golf course and with 100 balls in a bag and go, yeah, I worked on my swing, you gained almost nothing from that, is what I'm going to say. You had fun, in that sense, but you're not becoming a master of that particular skill, nor are you becoming elite at your level. And that's what we're talking about, elite. That's what Anders Ericsson is talking about, that's what Jeff Colvin is talking about. Jerry Rice, one of the best football players ever from the Bay Area, San Francisco 49ers, was a Hall of Famer, and when he was 40, and he was beating everybody. And they talked about him having the toughest practice regime in the off-season. 20-year-olds could not handle this 40-year-old's practice regimen in the off-season during summer. Michael Jordan was known as the best practice player on the planet. He beat people down in practice, and they won 6 championships. This is some of the anecdotal ideas that he brings out in his book. But then he distills it down and ties it to Anders Ericsson's research, which is elite performers practice in a deliberate way, specifically deliberate practice. And there are 5 hallmarks of deliberate practice, which are, it is specifically designed by experts. Think about Anthony Gatto for a moment. His dad was a circus professional and already knew the gig and trained him the right way with the correct exercises, not just farting around. The exercises can be repeated a lot, obviously. Feedback on performance is readily available. In this case, Anthony's father was looking at him saying, your hand's too high, throw lower, whatever. We see that now, there's no surprise that we see it with kids posting Instagram and Facebook videos and YouTube videos because they're constantly videoing themselves, and that video is feedback. But for me, being 49 years old with a career, I don't have time to film myself. I barely have time to juggle. So having time to juggle and then watch the entire practice, forget it. I never do that. And this is where we get. Oh, look at him. See, all right. The steam is just coming out. Awesome. I'm almost done. It is highly demanding mentally. You are not just practicing anything. You are seeking out your weakest piece of technique, and the exercise should be designed to make that piece of technique better. That's what you're doing. That's very granular, and that's very boring. Hence, number 5. It is not much fun. And those of you who've been in the game for a while remember Benji Hill, who was a coach and had a specific system that he put all his people through. And the only person who really revolted against it was Sean McKinney. But if you look at Benji's results as a coach, it's unmatched in IJA history in 70 years. Richard Kennison's getting close, but Benji, without question. Oh, Jack's gonna... Because Jack's been around longer than I, so... But Benji, I mean, if you look at who he trained and what they did on stage and the amount of medals and wins and how those performances went, I'm not saying they were the aesthetic or artistic elite. We're talking about the technique of juggling and what they produced on demand. Hence the term, the Benji Hill pyramid. So I talk a little bit about the what and the why beget the how. What you want to do and why you want to do it will determine how you're going to work it. And you can't do the how until you can't decide the practice until you decide what you want to do. What I want to do is very specific and very simple. I want to teach the best workshops in the world so that I get invited to festivals for workshops, because I am not the best stage performer. And no one will invite me to a festival to perform on stage. I got enough that maybe that's just a little extra I can throw in. But I want to teach the best, and to teach the best workshops, I have to be able to produce all the techniques on demand, immediately, for anywhere between 5 to 10 cycles. That's what I'm doing. But once again, what is that idea of mastery? Is it 100 throws on demand, as long as you want, 10 cycles? What about the ability to do the pyramid, 20, 10, 5, 1 repetitions without a drop, at whatever throw count you want? I'm pyramiding 7 balls still, and the bottom of my pyramid is 50 throws. And my number 1 attempt is 75 throws. And there are gradations of 5 or 10 throws added on. It works. It's mind-numbing. It takes time. I do a mini period of 10, 5, 3, 1, just to save time. But I know that by making that choice of saving time, I'm also cheating myself of performance. I'll end with the final, I didn't put it here yet, but it was in the Juggle magazine. It was in a video where Benji is talking about Jonathan Brady's 2003 juniors routine, in which he had 1 drop only. And they had practiced prior to that performance A, B, C, D versions of that routine. The thing he won with 1 drop was his D version. It was his easiest version, in which he did, for example, a 5 club, 3 up pirouette into singles. The A version was a 5 up double pirouette into singles. And they had any choice. They watched the other competitors who went before them, and then he looked at him and said, everybody else is kind of droppy tonight. Do D. That's a guaranteed win. They already had it in the bag. But if somebody else had gone super wild, like Olga Galchenko competed that year as a junior. If she goes really clean, do B. Then it's not 7 balls of 30 throws with 1 966 thrown in. It's 7 balls for 100 throws with 966 for 5 cycles, and so on and so forth. You get it? To get to that level, that's mastery, in my opinion. And if you look at what Benji did, I'm not advocating for Benji on many levels, but that's the specific design. That is deliberate practice. It meets all 5 hallmarks of deliberate practice. Jonathan still juggles, and there's other issues there, but many of the Benji people, Adam Kariotis, the twins. Help me out with the twins' names.
LaSalle? Is that?
Who?
Yeah, was it LaSalle?
LaSalle brothers. Marty and Jake LaSalle. Thank you. Prime the Pump. I got it all there. I'm a geek about IJ competition. But yeah, I went to London and performed in Britain at the BJC with Mark and Jake, and after they had just won in Madison in 2002, they were like, oh, what a grind. This is brutal. Whoa, this was terrible. But they still had it. They hated it, but they had it, and they realized what they had, what they had paid and what they gained by that payment. And then they went and became lawyers. I think one's a doctor, one's a lawyer. All right, I've planted the flag. Who wants to go first?
I'll start. So I guess the first thing I want to push back on is this idea that we're trying to become elite, that we're trying to become the best, that we're trying to become Anthony Gatto. I think it's really important to remember that Anthony Gatto doesn't like juggling. If you want to juggle and not like juggling, and you want to become the best juggler, absolutely, that is the way to go. But I think that structuring your practices in a way that is fun to you should be the primary goal. And for me, I have found that in order to keep it fun over a long period of time, in order to keep it satisfying, I do want to push my technique. And so there's this balance between how much am I drilling things, how much am I training endurance, how much am I really like grinding and doing that not fun practice, versus when am I jamming 3 balls in my room late at night because I want to. And I've found that I think if I was when I was a teenager, I was very primarily a technical juggler. It was very much juggle 5 balls, juggle 6 balls, juggle 7 balls, etc. And progress was slow. I mean, it was fun. I was having a good time, but I don't think I would be where I am today. I don't think I would still be juggling as seriously if I didn't step back and just make it fun. So I really want to encourage you to think about that balance between what are the techniques you want because using them is fun, because catching things on your elbows and having people go wild is one of the most satisfying things in the world, versus no, I will never be Jacob Sharp at catching things on my elbows. I will never be Anthony Gatto at juggling 9 balls and 7 clubs. And I just want to like juggling more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Matan is saying. One of the ways that I like to have fun during my practices is it's actually a big debate that I have with myself a lot, whether or not to listen to music while I practice. But that happens to make it a lot of fun when I'm just drilling a technique. I can do basic 3 club exercises while I'm listening to music. And I know that the 3 club exercises, they're easy and they're going to benefit me later, but I'm having fun listening to the music while I do it. So that's one of the few things. And yeah, going back to what Matt was saying earlier about the filming yourself, I think it's a pretty big misconception of how you would implement that. And it's actually one of the techniques that I've used that I feel helps me grow the most over the years of training. And I'll take a break from listening to music to go film myself, and then that's the serious practice, and the music is the fun practice for me. But when I'm filming myself, what I'll do instead of filming large portions of my practice, I'll actually set up the camera, juggle for 1 round, just juggle for 15 seconds, and then I'll go back, check the camera, and fix what I don't like. And then it'll be a battle between myself and the camera, just doing that, set it up, 1 trick, go back to the camera, look, set it up again, keep looking, because I don't know, maybe there'll be something my right shoulder is a little bit too high, and then I want to work on getting it lower. And then every time that I try it again after filming and I see it's going lower, I know that I'm doing the right thing, and I have to move my body in a certain way that is kind of counterintuitive to what I'm seeing in the video. You have to feel it and see it. So that's why the filming helps. And you're not supposed to do a whole practice, because if you were doing a whole practice, then you realize something was wrong in the beginning. It's going to be wrong at the end too. So that's why you just catch 15-second snippets and keep checking the film to see if they've gone away. That's what I would recommend, and I think it's really useful.
Jumping on another thing that I really like about filming my juggling is getting to have a new trick. I'm this feels so cool, and then watching it and being yeah, or the opposite, and really figuring out what I like and the aesthetics I want to bring, which then I can bring back and drive technique. I can say, oh, I was surprised with how much I liked how that looked. Let me drill this technique so I can use this more and go further with that. And having that feedback, not just with your technique and trying to juggle more and more, is building an aesthetic of your juggling that you like and that you're happy with. And even if I stop juggling, having hundreds of videos of my juggling is a record that I have forever, which is something I really like and I hold near and dear to myself, to my juggling something.
Yeah. And even though when you're filming the videos, it might not be very fun in the moment, it's really cool to look back on everything and see like, yeah, I've progressed a lot over time. And one of the fun things about juggling is seeing yourself get better. So all the grind to put in the hard work for all the improvement in the moment, it might not be fun. But for me, juggling is about the long-term view of everything and like looking back and seeing all the progress I've made. And I find that really fun.
Like, how much time do you spend filming yourself until you decide to stop?
So it usually depends on like, so my training sessions, the way I organize them, really, it depends on what's coming up in my juggling career. So like, if, like, for example, when I'm about to perform a show, I film myself less often actually, because when I'm filming myself, it's for the raw technique, and I know that the things that I'm doing when I perform a show, that kind of like shoulder adjustment or whatever, it's not really gonna change the way I do the act. So it's more, I'll film myself in periods like when I don't have anything like performance-y coming up for a while. Sorry, can you repeat? what
Like,
you were saying?
would you literally do that for an hour?
Yeah.
Until you feel corrected?
So it becomes almost obsessive, and I'm not sure like how healthy it is to some extent, but I'll be really OCD about getting my form really good on video, just going back and forth. And in a way, it is kind of fun just to like battle against the camera, because it's kind of a challenge for me to be like, yeah, I can do 7 clubs, but can I do it with my body looking good while I do it? I like the aesthetic of that, so that's why I do it.
So a discussion that me and Jonah had recently was the like technique. Is it something that looks like something? Is it a way that your body looks? Or for me, I do technique based on feel. And so for me, having a more relaxed and comfortable pattern, I hold in much higher regard than any look or feel. With the caveat that I have taken technique seriously for years and years and years, and so I have a nice base, and I know that what feels natural to me is a reasonable, true form. So I don't think that that's a good way to correct your form in the moment, but I think it's something to think about in the long term. We're building muscle memory. Muscle memory is how we communicate with our brains to our muscle, and that is inherently a feeling. If we can learn what that feels like and learn what nice technique feels like, then we don't need to film and go back, which you might not be able to do when you're trying your most number of balls or clubs or whatever, but something that you can work on with 3 or 4 or x minus 2 or whatever it is, to try and understand what good technique feels like, and then trying to bring that back into your hardcore training your hardest techniques.
You want to say something?
Yeah, the talk about aesthetic and the talk about fun reminds me of the old movie Legend of Dogtown and Z-Boys. Remember they talked about surfers?
Yeah.
He's got stink bug style. He doesn't have good style. It was all about style. I want to have my hand this way and I'm touching the pavement. And we as jugglers do that too. There are people we know who are burly jugglers, but maybe you just don't like the way it looks. For whatever reason, I don't like that juggler. Oh, he's good. Yeah, he's better than me, but I don't like it. I'm starting to sound like Dan Holtzman now. He's bogus. He's bogus. He's not good. He's all right. But anyway, so the point being is that, and there's another phrase about surfing that is, I grew up surfing. I grew up in Laguna Beach, and is the only way to do surfing wrong is if you're not having fun. The only way to do juggling is if you're not wrong is if you're not having fun. But once again, you have to decide what you want, and there's nothing wrong with deciding what you want and then deciding what is the most effective way to achieve that. I spent 13 months on 8 minutes for a 2003 silver medal. 2009, I didn't get in the finals. 2001, I didn't get in the finals. 2003, I took it seriously and wrote an Excel file and practiced every trick, and if it wasn't 5 out of 5, I started cutting it from the routine. And then I practiced with John and Root for a week in Reno. And they're homeless, we were all homeless, and they won everything, and I got silver. And they were watching me practice, and they were saying, you need to get rid of that trick. No, I gotta have it, it's the trick, it's the side swap. Dude, you're dropping, here's the trick, you're dropping this one, because you're already thinking about this one, and after you've screwed it up again, you miss this one. Take it out, and then, smooth, no problem. Or talking about 5 club singles with Doug Sayers. And he said one thing. Oh, your angle's off. 5 seconds. Doubled my, personal best. Things like that. So there's the fun, but then we all have to decide what we want. And that's okay. You can own what you want. But I agree completely. What is the fun? Obviously getting invited to festivals, especially when you're old and busted. That's fun. Well, teaching a great workshop, for me, that's the juice. Or the third thing, which is this idea of Japanese, it's called kaizen. What they did to destroy our TV industry and our car industry and everything else. Gradual improvement. They took our ideas, our concepts, our fundamental concepts, and then I'm just going to tweak it. Tweak it this, a little bit better, a little bit better. We're going to boil the frog. And I love that. And the system I'm using right now with those sheets, some of you saw me post my new practice sheets to keep me disciplined. Just 3 club chess rolls, which is not the best trick in the world, but for me, I always wanted it. When I started 2 weeks ago, my record was 10. My record yesterday was 40. That's great. I just new breakthrough, whatever they did. But I didn't grind that trick for hours every day to get that breakthrough. I just did 5 attempts every day. And if all 5 attempts, if I dropped 1, 2, drop, 1, 2, drop, 1, 2, 3, drop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, drop, 1 drop. Okay, I did 5 attempts. I'm just fuck it. I'm gonna move on. But I did that every day. And now I can do it for 10 on demand. I would have battled with it. Yes.
Kind of on that subject, for you guys as well, one of the things I always struggle with is how long do I work on one trick? Is it better to stop no matter what, even if you're in the groove and you feel like you're making progress after 10 minutes and then just come back? Or do you spend an hour on one trick? How long do I
Say
spend?
you.
I think it totally depends on what you want out of it. If it's going to make you really happy to nail that trick and you feel like you're improving, usually I just keep going for it until I feel like it's time to move on. I usually make in-the-moment judgment calls. I don't plan my practices too much beforehand, which might be to my detriment a little bit, but that's how I like to do it, because it's really fun in the moment when you're improving and then you get the trick.
On average, how long do you practice one trick?
So every now and then there will be one really hard trick that I want, and I probably won't practice it for more than half an hour to 45 minutes at one time. But I don't do that very often. It'll be
I don't have that much time for my wife.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Different life positions.
So my practice schedules, it's really on and off switch. During the semesters, I'll juggle once or twice a week, and then when I'm home for break, I'll juggle between 3 and 5 hours a day. So in those periods while I'm home, I'll probably spend a long time trying to get a hard trick, maybe once every couple weeks. It's not really that satisfying to do it very often, because now there's a lot of different techniques that I want to try and work on. But if it's something like running 7 clubs, I'll do a lot of exercises that I know will benefit that, as well as other tricks, because you can multitask in the exercises that you practice.
Yeah, so actually very similar. If you're in the groove, if you're having fun, go for it. If you're getting frustrated with it, I really want this, but it's not working, definitely moving on and making sure you're having fun. I think that thinking about transferable skills, and so I am training my 9 balls way, way, way more often than I am juggling 9 balls, because I do things with 5, 6, 7, and 8 that take way less energy, way less time, that are still training my 9 balls. And so if there's a trick that you really want, but you're really frustrated by trying to get, practice something easier that's an easier version of what it is, and just get 10 successful attempts. So something like that, something to be all right, I know that I moved a little bit from A to B today because I put in 10 minutes of trying the really hard thing and then 10 minutes of doing something that was easier and I could already do. Boom, progress. I'll come back to it in a day, in a week, in a month, and making sure that if you want that trick, practice it every week or every month, or over a long period of time, having that consistent effort. I think that that's actually way more important than every day. If you practice every day for a month, I don't think that's nearly as good as taking those, like if you can do 50 practices over 150 days or whatever it is, more practices over time and spreading out time I think is really, really valuable and way more difficult because it's way easier to get 4 hours done if you just like boom, I'm done. Like I did 4 hours, as opposed to making sure that you practice that like 5 minutes, like enough times and enough practices that you get to that 4 hours. Takes really knowing that you want that trick and making sure that you're getting to it every once in a while instead of working out it until you burn out and you don't want to juggle anymore.
For me, I told you the 5 attempts, and that was an outgrowth of, I also put down the phone and said, you have 2 minutes. And when the phone alarm goes off, you stop, whether you're getting better, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, 2 minutes. Partly because I know myself, hopefully after 49 years I know myself some way, that chasing that rabbit it leads nowhere good. Even if I know I'm getting better and I want the breakthrough, it'll come tomorrow then. But I need to get to the other stuff. And it's also a function of, I practice routines and performances with cigar boxes, tennis ball and can, Diablo, bounce balls, toss balls, clubs. That's a lot of props. And think of how many tricks with each prop. And I have to do that all in 60 minutes. Like when we do homecoming, I'm in charge of homecoming at this school. And during the 7 days of homecoming, I was on this campus 118 hours. Not counting what I did at home. And Lisa's working the same. So you see what I'm saying? It's opportunity cost. It's economics 101. What you pay here, you don't have for here. So I don't have the time for that at all. At most, I'll get an hour a day if I'm lucky. So I have to decide what to do with it. But if you look at my list, I've got 65 different things on that list. And I can get through most of them in an hour. And feel good about just having given them each one. Nobody gets neglected. Everybody gets a little bit. Nobody gets everything. And the times when I chase the rabbit, then I don't get to the other stuff. And I feel bad about that. Because I want to be more consistent. I want to be more self-disciplined in myself. The cigar box for 3 hours at a time. It gets the 4 minutes and 34 seconds that I practice my routine. So if somebody calls me tomorrow and says, we'll give you $10,000 as a cigar box routine, I'm ready. Nothing else. And you talk to Ivan or John or Owen, any of those guys who make their livings. Ivan, he's like, I don't practice anymore. He does it for fun or he'll warm up the show. He's like, I can never juggle balls anymore. But he's doing them in the show. He's made his choice. And he's fine with it. And he's getting things for it. And he's also traded off something. Opportunity cost. My doctor told me last year that I have the hips of a 67-year-old. He said, you should go in for surgery, hip replacement surgery immediately. And I went, I don't have time, I got prom, I got this. I still haven't done it, because I'm waiting for EJC 2019. And I'm emceeing the Cascade of Stars at IJ this summer. David Kane asked me. So I'm not doing it yet. But that means after an hour, after 90 minutes, everything hurts. And then it's recovery. And am I too sore the next day that I don't want to do it? That's not their problem.
Yeah,
Look at them, they're like, ha 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 ha. A flush of youth. Question. Average practice length. Just in general, guesstimation. We already know I'm 60 max, if I'm lucky.
Varies probably between 2 and 4 hours.
Daily. Or when you're practicing regularly,
every day.
I'm going to bust 2 to 4 hours regularly.
When I have the time, I like to get in 2-hour practices or more, but the practices I do in the real world vary from literally 15 seconds to 3 or 4 hours. And like seriously, I will do stuff for 15 seconds because I want to, because I have something out in my house and I am randomly inspired to pick up the kendama that I can't do anything with and try to spike it. And like I actually hold a take that seriously, that every time I do that I get a little bit better. Or if I try want to take kendama seriously, in a year or 2 years, I will benefit from having spent those 15 seconds a few times here and there.
Do you practice every day?
Yes, I practice something every day. I try and, varies wildly what I'm doing. It might be picking up a contact ball, it might be juggling 3 balls, it might be a hardcore numbers practice, it might be jamming 3 rings, which none of you have seen me do because you shouldn't.
Are you gonna do the West Peden thing? You go,
Gotta do something.
They go like this.
But yeah, I mean, I take diversifying my practice as seriously as the amount of time I put in. I want to make sure that, like, yes, trying to juggle 8 and 9 balls is going to be my primary goal for a long time. But I want to do new things. I want to be picking up new props and new skills when I'm 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever it is, because it's that learning that is so fun to me, and learning new skills that I'll have forever.
How long have you been juggling right now?
Like 9 years.
I started when I was 6, so kind of 16 years. I didn't practice for 7 of those. So I guess 9 years-ish of practice, but 16 years of juggling.
And I'm at 22, and I'm still stoked. And it's good for me, once again, to be hitting personal best and feel like my personal juggling is still ahead of me. My best juggling is still ahead of me at 49. I'm stoked. And I'm like a little grom in that way. It's their term, but another, when he says about variety, doing that little incremental and having that list and having that Excel sheet, I've started moving things off it, not because they're not working, because I've already I mastered it. So that's my reward as well. I get to put something new on and add it to the list. And because I've got my practice so tight, that now I've also got the holiest of holies. That if I only have 10 minutes, I'm going to do this trick in 3 clubs, these 2 tricks in 4 clubs. I got to have 4 club mills and singles. That has to be done. 5 clubs got to be done, doubles and singles, and 5-4-2-4, 54-2-4 in clubs. Got to do it. I set a new personal best the other day. I was stoked. And then 7 balls, cascade, and I'm going to do some 6-ball multiplexes because I'm just feeling those. And I'll skip a lot of the 7-ball multiplexes. I'll skip a lot of the 5-ball side swap stuff. I'll skip the bounce routine. I can do the bounce routine. You know what I mean? I know exactly, the internet conked out yesterday and I lost an hour and a half to it. No, that was today. Oh, Jesus. I lost an hour and a half in my life. So I only did the minimal to get it while I was waiting for the Comcast guy. But I got it done, and it was fun, and it helped me pass the time. Because I knew I had 15 to 20 minutes. So I squeezed those things. Efficient. What else? Taylor.
I know you've talked about kind of what you practice a lot for your routines and stuff.
Yeah.
For you guys that practice like every day, do you practice the same thing every day, or do you like have a day of clubs, a day of rings, a day of balls? Do you try to just do all the props every day and the same tricks every day?
So I kind of go through phases with like what's my favorite prop at the moment. Right now, I'm kind of in a ring phase. I used to be in a club phase. I don't really juggle balls too much anymore. But my practices will be largely centered around the prop that I'm currently most interested in. And even within those practices, I'll they're obviously not as organized as Matt's, but I'll kind of have like a mental spreadsheet sort of, and there will be like a few things that I want to check off in my practice. And so for a while, like every day that I would practice, I would want to do at least 50 catches of 7 clubs with a clean collect. And I would do...
Just want to check that off.
Yeah, and I would make sure I did a 5 club, 5 up, 720 into singles, and then a 5 up in singles from that. And I would make sure I had both of those clean every single day because those influence a lot of the other skills with clubs that I'm also trying to build on. So I have these like little things in my mind that I want to check off for each practice. But other than that, it's kind of whatever I want to work on in the moment.
There definitely get times, especially when I'm practicing daily, that I'll end up doing the same thing every day. But not really. I kind of don't structure my practices. I kind of do whatever I feel like. I guess the main type of practice I have is where I'm practicing a lot of different site swaps, and so I'm really trying to just practice vanilla throws with balls, just how high can I throw them, how precisely can I throw them, and so there's a lot of different things I work on within that, but even that, there's many hundreds of site swaps that I could work on that would, in my mind, accomplish the same thing, so I want to try and do a combination of making sure that there are some that I like really get solid and really can do like at the tip of a hat, and then some that I like trying new ones every day to try and make sure I'm always diversifying, even though it's again towards that same goal of being able to do any site swap. That's the goal.
Maximilian Kuchmer, I mean, his 100-day quest, man, I've been following that avid. I'm a fan. And
Me too.
And I've written him down. He posted the spreadsheet. I think he's like keeping track of it. And
Yeah.
And I already printed it out because that's my hour practice or my 20 minutes or whatever I got today is the eating healthy and being on a diet, then that kind of stuff is my cheat day. I promised myself that at this festival I'm going to do my practice. I'm going to do my practice today and tomorrow and Sunday, but I'm also going to, I got to try a couple of those. I just got to try it. Super fun. We got about 10, 15 minutes left. Questions or comments? Once again, I'm sure many of you have equally, if not stronger and more informed opinions than me. I'm playing the foil tonight.
I got a question.
All right, wait, time out. All right, why don't we go boom, boom, boom. I'm doing the teacher thing. We'll go around the room and it'll be fine. David?
So you talked a bit about the grind when you were prepping for championships. I know you've competed a couple of times now. Has your practice routine changed preparing for that?
Oh yeah, it's completely different. Like, one thing that I like to do is I'll go through every single trick in my routine. I'll just do it like 10 times in a row, and that takes up a large portion of the practice. And during that, I'll film myself to make sure I'm doing it well. But after that, then I'll run the routine a few times, kind of thing.
Sounds like deliberate practice. Jack?
Question is if you're learning some new trick, something, say 9 balls, you've never worked on it before, 10 balls, whatever. Do you practice so that, do you try to not drop? Do you have something in mind? Do you try to do like, or do you just do it and then pick them up? Or do you try to break it down into site swaps that have 9s and 10s or whatever?
A's in them, yeah, A's
How
in
do you-
them. Or...
How do you go about learning some totally new skill?
So for me, it's about, I guess, like partial success. And so if I want to juggle 10 balls, then a success would be any throw of 10 that is precise and good. And so if the way I can get the most partial successes is by trying to throw up 10 and doing that over and over, like great, I'm going to do that. But like what I've found for a lot of numbers practices is you waste a lot of time picking up. And so if I like doing things that are like with fewer numbers and like practicing those high throws in ways that is more manageable to me, I can get in a whole lot more success in the same amount of time with the same amount of energy, and be patient and wait until I can throw up 10 and it feels useful and doable. Making sure I'm not neglecting it, making sure you're always going for the thing that you want and testing it, but really focusing on like the amount of success you are having per unit time.
I couldn't agree more. I'm sorry. Yeah, like for me, 4 club mills on singles and 4 club scissors with one as a 4x4 in wall, plane, and regular. I wanted to have 4 cycles. I had to do 4 cycles. But no, I realized I need to go back because I was dropping so much and explosions, and I just did 2 cycles. Bum, 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 bum. And it just felt great. And it was so much more positive. Every time ending. Then I go, okay, I'm going to go for 3. Okay, now 3. It's up to 6 now. I can just, and I push for 8, maybe just 1 time. But yeah, I don't got time to pick up, man. And the psychic toll on your confidence is brutal. And same with the 4X, I was getting collision, explosions. So just, god damn it, just 1 on each side. Just without question, I'm practicing to completion now and not to failure. I'm not maxing out on anything. But then when I do it, like 5-3-4 with 4s as flats, like I was just doing it 4-cycle forever. And now it's 8, and I can probably do that first try every track. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what they said. That when it's something completely new, I would not spend too much time each day on it. Not a good idea. Earlier, when I said that I would spend like half an hour to 45 minutes on a single trick, that kind of trick that I'll spend that much time on, I'll do it knowing that the time that I'm spending on it is going to influence other parts of my juggling and be really helpful. So for instance, I'll try and do a 7 club trick or an 8 ring trick, and when I do that, it's going to force my patterns into a really nice shape so that I can actually do the trick. So in practicing like that, I'm improving my 7 club and 8 ring patterns. But if it's something completely new, you're not going to have the opportunity to do something like that, which is why I wouldn't recommend spending long periods of time working on it.
Yeah, if you're getting a synergistic effect or a twofer, then maybe it's worth a little more. It's worth a stretch, but if it's just one distinct skill, then that's one distinct thing you need to do. Chris? Yost?
Yeah, I was going to mention sometimes when I'm working on like higher numbers, if I get a lot of progress, if I like drill like crazy for a while, and then take a break for like a week or a couple weeks or even like a month, and then come back to it later. How do you guys feel about that?
So I actually firmly believe that the what happens with practice is very much over time, and that what you get out of a single practice you are not seeing at the end of that practice. I've actually really found that I train a whole lot during the summers because I had them off of school and I had more time. And by the end of the summer, I kind of would plateau. I would get frustrated, not making much progress. But even as I went into fall and I wasn't practicing as much, I actually started to make progress again and realized, like, when that happened a couple of times, like, oh, like, I wasn't actually plateauing. I just wasn't seeing what was happening to the practice. And so it's not necessarily that you put it down, but that you kind of gave it some time and that like it kind of like clicked in your muscles, kind of everything you hear about like don't cram study for a test, like make sure you get a good night's sleep before a test, like saying this with a high school teacher in the room, but like, yeah.
Yeah, the guy who built the Brooklyn Bridge, when they hired him, he was working, you've heard this, right? For 2 years, they were like, we're going to fire you. We can't, where's the bridge? We were paying you. You're paying workers, materials, logistics. What's going on? We can't see anything. It's like, because I've been building underwater. You have to build everything underwater before it goes, whoop. All the columns, all this thing. That was the 3rd and 4th year. They went, oh, I get it. Doesn't work any other way. It has to be underwater first, right? And it's a trite analogy, but I like it. Good. More comments, more questions?
Is there a resource for making these pyramids? A recommended resource, or like how you do it?
Well, the original one, as previously mentioned, like when I started with 7 balls, when I just want to learn 7 balls, I did it a little bit. But then when I lost it and had to come back to it, I said, this time I'm going to do it right. I'm going to spend years. And practice to completion. 20 attempts of 7 throws. That's it. 10 attempts of 9 throws. I'm adding 2 more. It's symmetrical. It's 5 attempts of 11 and 1 attempt of 13. And if I understand correctly, and people can challenge me if I'm wrong, but Benji would say, this is the one you will perform. This is your D, right? And until this is your D, you know what I'm saying? Then A is over here, kind of thing. And you need to get through all this completely, perfectly, no drops whatsoever before we change any of those numbers ever.
So something to add, I have never, ever, ever used pyramid techniques.
Pyramid technology.
Yeah.
And I've used it a lot for different things. So, and for many things it worked, some things it didn't. Anybody else? Please, Morgan.
Do you supplement your juggling training with any other physical or mental training?
It's important to stretch, at least. for me, I know that I'm gonna get injured if I don't stretch. I had tendonitis at one point, and sometimes I get muscle cramps in my arms if I'm not stretching before my practices.
And do you do just like basic wrist stretches?
Yeah, so I'll do these, and then I'll do some like active things. I'll like shake out my arms and stuff, and then pull these across. And like just a couple minutes of stretching before my practices. Sometimes I forget to, but it's really important that I do it for long practices.
Again, stretching, and I think even beyond just injury prevention, I think that building your flexibility is a really great way to build strength that will stay, as opposed to just like temporary gains that you get from working out, as well as just having more range of motion. I haven't stretched nearly as much as I think I have, but in like what little I have, like I've even seen an improvement. Like, oh wow, like this stuff, like everything is easier because my body just works a little bit better. It's really interesting and something I should do more always.
Lisa and I see a personal trainer 3 times a week and just do that to stay not fat-ish. and then I meditate with my students in all my classes every day. So I get that little piece, either 1 to 5 minutes. I tease them. I go, what do you, how long was it? And they go, 2 minutes. I go, 2:30, and that kind of thing. So I do a lot of that, and I gave up Diablo. I had tendonitis in my shoulder enough, and when I had to decide, did I want balls, clubs, boxes, and other stuff, or do I want 3 Diablos low? Because the practice methodology for that will wreck your wrist, arm, elbow, and shoulder.
And it's not physical, but I think about site swap a lot. I have done a lot of work with a pen and paper on Google Sheets with other people, and I think that the theoretical understanding of juggling is really, really crucial to coming up with new things. And I think that it plays really into visualization, which I know a lot of people swear by in music, swear by in a lot of different things. And I think that by thinking about site swap, I really train how I can visualize juggling in my head. And what is wonderful about visualizing site swaps is I can throw as high as I want, and I can have as much time as I want, and I'm not constrained by any physical realities. I can just like think about where I want the things to go in the air in theory, and then try and bring them back into the real world.
Final comments from Jonah or from Matan?
Yeah, I don't know. After this discussion, I think I'm definitely going to try and take a slightly more rigorous approach to my practices. Every now and then I'll do things like, you're going to do this trick 10 times in a row well, but I think that I could probably benefit from maybe some pyramid practice on my 7 clubs. I'm going to give it a try and see how it goes. Yeah.
Matan?
I guess my final comment is just going back to what makes you happy and figure out how you're making progress, and like, is it the progress that's making you happy? Because in that sense, like, absolutely, like drill stuff until your eyes bleed. But like, don't do it for the wrong reasons, and continue to do things that are fun to you, continue to enjoy the art form and the sport, and that will keep you juggling and practicing for longer and increase your upside in the long run, and you will juggle better and more than you ever think you could.
I agree with both these young gentlemen. They're better jugglers than I'll ever be in many senses of the word. I think back to 2004 again, BJC, first time in Britain, gala show, me, Marty and Jake LaSalle, Jay Gilligan, several, Root Berry, everybody was there. But here's the thing. Jay Gilligan is on stage doing his ring routine, where he carries out a boom box, puts it down, presses play, starts doing the ring thing. I mean, back then, 2004, the elbow, the head, he's doing his thing. The Brits are sitting there, and he either makes a mistake or something, and he walks over, presses stop, rewinds it, presses play, and starts his routine at the beginning of the routine. It's not done yet. So now, of course, the Brits, this is their national pastime, heckling. But they start heckling, like one guy goes, "Fucking Americans." And everybody hears it, and people go, boo, oh, that's too much. Don't do that. And Jay hears it, presses stop again, walks off stage, gets the white balloon that he'd just done his routine with the balloon and the balls, and he's hitting the balls underneath it and keeping the balloon in the air, walks out and goes, boop, and pops it, like facing the guy up in the balcony. He goes, boop. Then he walks out again, comes back on, he's got 7 Fergie bags in his hand, and goes, boom, 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 boom. Precisely 100 throws. Flawless.
Wow.
Stops, drops it, and goes. Walks off stage with the balls, comes back out. I'll never forget. That was a tour de force. That he had that much in his pockets. He had that much confidence in his technique to go from ring to immediately 7 balls for 100 on the dime. That's a mental game, but that's also practice and technique. And I've yet to ask him. I mean, he and Eric Obity and I have been talking about the Luke Wilson thing and all that. We talk about that. But I've never asked, dude, how do you practice, dude? How did you practice? How did you come up? I want to know that. But I still remember that then. And I wish I had that now still. That's both mental, but that's several things happening there. Thanks for coming, man. 11:30. We got. We're gonna clean up. Like 11:45. Start figuring out what you want to leave in here and lock up the stop. And thank you to Taylor for filming Eli the podcast. I think yes, Morgan. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, we got a video, man. We're gonna put it on YouTube and let's see what Luke Burge says. I want to. Hi, Luke. Thanks for coming.